The Mothman prophecies, Silver Bridge, collapse connection 46 perished when the bridge fell. Days before, witnesses saw something impossible in the sky watching them. Late afternoon shadows stretch across the Ohio River on December 15, 1967. Rush hour traffic moves steadily across the Silver Bridge, a suspension structure connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Gallipolis, Ohio. Headlights begin to appear as twilight approaches. Workers head home. Holiday shoppers return with packages. The bridge carries its usual load of vehicles and pedestrians, unaware that in minutes, the structure will fail catastrophically. At exactly 5:04 p.m., a single eye-bar in the suspension chain fractures. The failure cascades through the bridge's structure in seconds. The roadway buckles, twists, and plunges into the frigid December waters below. Vehicles tumble into the Ohio River. Metal screams, people scream. Within moments, the Silver Bridge ceases to exist as anything but twisted wreckage half submerged in the current. 46 people lose their lives in the collapse. The disaster shocks the nation. The National Transportation Safety Board launches an immediate investigation. Engineers swarm the wreckage. The technical explanation emerges within weeks. A stress corrosion crack in a single eye-bar, a flaw that had existed undetected in the structure for an unknown period, finally reached critical failure. But there exists another timeline running parallel to the engineering investigation, one that begins 13 months earlier and ends precisely at the moment the bridge collapses. November 1966. Point Pleasant becomes the center of an encounter wave unlike anything documented in American paranormal research. Witnesses begin reporting a creature that defies conventional classification. The descriptions remain remarkably consistent: a humanoid figure between 6 and 7 feet tall, with enormous wings and eyes that glow red in darkness. The creature moves with impossible speed, paces vehicles traveling at highway speeds, and appears without warning before vanishing just as quickly. The first documented encounter occurs on November 15, 1966, when two young couples driving near the abandoned TNT plant north of Point Pleasant report a gray-winged creature with glowing red eyes. The encounter terrifies them so completely that they drive directly to the Mason County Courthouse to report what they witnessed. Deputy Millard Halstead takes their statement seriously enough to investigate the area himself that same night. More encounters follow. The reports come from credible witnesses, business owners, factory workers, families. Mary Heyer, a respected reporter for the Point Pleasant Register, begins documenting the accounts. The creature earns a name from the press coverage: Mothman. John Keel, a journalist investigating anomalous phenomena, arrives in Point Pleasant in early 1967. His background includes several years of field research into unexplained events around the world. He brings a researcher's discipline to the Mothman phenomenon, interviewing witnesses, mapping encounter locations, and documenting the temporal patterns of the sightings. What Keel discovers in his fieldwork becomes the foundation for one of the most significant correlations in paranormal research. The Mothman encounters cluster geographically around specific areas: the TNT plant, the riverfront, and particularly the approaches to the Silver Bridge. The temporal pattern shows increasing frequency as 1967 progresses. The weeks immediately before the December collapse represent the peak intensity of the encounter wave. Keel documents something else in his witness interviews, something that transcends the immediate terror of encountering an impossible creature. Witnesses consistently report a sense of profound dread associated with their Mothman experiences, a feeling that goes beyond the fear generated by the creature's appearance. Several witnesses describe this sensation as a warning, though a warning of what they cannot articulate. The encounter wave includes more than just Mothman sightings. Point Pleasant experiences a concentration of anomalous phenomena throughout 1966 and 1967. Witnesses report unusual lights in the sky. Strange men appear asking questions about the creature encounters, men whose behavior and appearance strike witnesses as deeply wrong. Some witnesses receive telephone calls delivering cryptic prophecies about disasters to come. One recurring contact identifies himself as Indrid Cold. Multiple witnesses report encounters with this entity, both in person and through telephone communications. The messages often concern future disasters. Some prove accurate, others do not. The phenomenon adds another layer of strangeness to the Point Pleasant experience. Mary Hyre maintains contemporaneous documentation of these events through her reporting. Her newspaper articles provide a real-time record of the encounter wave as it unfolds. Hyre herself receives numerous threatening telephone calls. She experiences equipment malfunctions. Her documentation of these interference patterns becomes part of the case record. The community responds to the encounter wave with a mixture of fear, fascination, and skepticism. Some witnesses refuse to discuss their experiences publicly after facing ridicule. Others speak openly, insisting on the reality of what they witnessed. The creature becomes part of Point Pleasant's daily conversation throughout 1967. Then December 15 arrives. The bridge collapses. 46 people perish in the frigid Ohio River. The community's attention shifts immediately and completely to the very real disaster unfolding in their midst. Recovery operations continue for weeks. The engineering investigation begins. The nation mourns the victims, and the Mothman encounters cease. The cessation is documented in Keel's research and confirmed by Mary Hyre's reporting. The encounter wave that had been building steadily for 13 months essentially ends within days of the Silver Bridge collapse. Isolated reports continue sporadically in subsequent years, but the concentrated pattern of sightings that characterized 1966 and 1967 never returns to Point Pleasant. The temporal correlation demands explanation. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation attributes the bridge collapse to purely mechanical factors: the stress corrosion crack in the I-bar, inadequate inspection protocols, and the bridge's aging infrastructure. No paranormal explanation appears in the official findings. The engineering failure stands as sufficient cause for the disaster, but the coincidence of timing remains. The Mothman encounter wave peaks in the weeks before the collapse and ends almost immediately afterward. The geographic concentration of sightings around the bridge approaches suggests some connection to the structure itself. The sense of dread reported by witnesses aligns with the interpretation that something was attempting to communicate warning of the impending disaster. Keel's analysis, published in his book The Mothman Prophecies, synthesizes these patterns into a provocative thesis. He proposes that the Mothman and the associated phenomena represent a unified intelligence interacting with the Point Pleasant community. The purpose of this interaction, in Keel's interpretation, relates directly to the coming disaster. Whether the intelligence was attempting to warn of the collapse, was drawn to whatever energies attended the impending catastrophe, or was itself somehow connected to the forces that would cause the bridge to fail remains open to interpretation. The alternative explanations struggle with the documented facts. If the Mothman was simply a misidentified known animal, why did the sightings concentrate around the bridge and cease after its collapse? If the encounters were hoaxes or mass hysteria, how do we account for the consistency of descriptions across independent witnesses and the precise temporal correlation with the disaster? If the phenomenon was entirely unrelated to the bridge collapse, the timing represents one of the most striking coincidences in the paranormal record. The Silver Bridge disaster becomes a turning point in anomalous research methodology. Keel's documentation of the correlation between the creature encounters and the structural failure establishes a new category of investigation: disaster-associated phenomena. Subsequent researchers identify similar patterns in other locations and time periods. Reports of anomalous creatures or lights preceding earthquakes, tsunamis, and other catastrophes appear in folklore and contemporary accounts worldwide. The Mothman case influences how researchers approach the interpretation of creature encounters. rather than viewing such phenomena solely as cryptozoological questions about unknown animals. The Point Pleasant experience suggests that some encounter waves may represent something fundamentally different. Intelligence interacting with human communities around significant events. The victims of the Silver Bridge collapse remain at the center of the story. 46 people who set out on ordinary December errands never returned home. The engineering failure that caused their passing receives thorough documentation and leads to changes in bridge inspection standards nationwide. The official explanation stands complete on its own terms. But the other timeline persists in the record. The 13 months of encounters, the creature with glowing red eyes, the sense of dread, the warnings that went unheeded or ununderstood, and then the sudden silence after the bridge fell. Point Pleasant today maintains the Mothman as part of its identity. A statue stands in the town. An annual festival celebrates the phenomenon. The case remains one of the most recognized in American paranormal research. But beneath the cultural embrace of the mystery lies a genuine question that resists easy resolution. What was the Mothman? Why did it appear when it did? And why did the encounters cease so completely after 46 people perished in the Ohio River? The temporal correlation between the encounter wave and the disaster represents either one of the most significant patterns in paranormal research or one of its most misleading coincidences. The geographic concentration of sightings around the bridge approaches either indicates genuine connection to the structure or reflects the fact that the bridge was a natural observation point for a creature inhabiting the TNT plant area. The cessation of encounters after the collapse either confirms the warning interpretation or demonstrates the community's psychological shift away from the phenomenon. The case file remains open in the minds of researchers. The documented facts support multiple interpretations. The witnesses maintain the reality of their experiences. The engineering investigation stands as the official explanation for the collapse. And the Mothman itself, whatever it was, has never returned to Point Pleasant in the numbers that terrorized the community throughout 1967. What remains certain is this. For 13 months, witnesses in Point Pleasant reported encounters with something impossible. Then the bridge collapsed. Then the encounters stopped. That sequence of events, documented in contemporaneous reports and investigative records, constitutes one of the genuinely unexplained patterns in the American paranormal record. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.